Good morning. In this module, we will focus on types of emergencies and disasters. And we will start with traffic accident. About 1.35 million people die each year as a result of traffic accidents, and that represents 3% of the GDP. And the most affected population are the pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists. It's important to mention that even though 60% of the vehicles are in the low-income countries, 93% of the deaths happen in these countries. And the main cause of death in children and young people between 5 and 29 years of age is traffic accidents. I want to mention some of the risk factors, and clearly speed is one of them. The increase of 1% in the speed lead to 4% increase on accidents. And the second is to drive under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. And that create an important cause of accidents and mortality. The no use of helmets, safety belts, and are two key elements or two protective elements when we talk about car accidents. Use of road or unsafe road infrastructure, unsafe vehicles, and inappropriate care after the accident, and that explains why the high mortality happen in the low-income countries, not because necessarily they have more accidents, but the response after the accident is a lot better in high-income countries compared with low-income countries, and the treatment and the transfer of the patients after the accident is a key element of survival. The second more common after car accidents are drowning. And this drowning represent 7% of the injury-related deaths, and an estimation of 320,000 people die due to drowning, and this is higher risk among children, men, and people with easy access to water. Work or live close to the rivers, close to the sea, are people more affected by drowning. And the other cause of drowning is floods, and we will talk about floods later. Falls, that an estimate of 646,000 people worldwide died due to falls. And again, most of this mortality happened in the low-income country. The people more affected by falls is people above 65 years old, and approximately 37.3 million falls require medical attention every year. Air pollution is definitely an important and increased problem. In 2016, 91% of the population live in places where the WHO air quality guidelines were not respected. And air pollution caused 42 million premature deaths each year. If we look at this map, these red areas are areas with higher low air pollution, so showing that it's not definitely is a problem everywhere, but I want to mention how important is this problem in Asia, countries like India, China, and in an important part of Africa too. Climate change. So between 2030 and 2050, climate change is projected to cause an additional 250,000 deaths each year, and the cost of direct health damage is estimated to be between $2 and $4 billion by 2030. So actions that reduce greenhouse emission and the improve in the source on the green source of energy are very important actions to limit the climate changes. Burns burns cause approximately 180,000 deaths per year. The vast majority of these occur in low and middle income countries. For example, in India, more than 1 million people suffer moderate or severe burns every year, and in Bangladesh is almost 173,000. In Bangladesh, Colombia, Egypt, and Pakistan, 70% of the children with burns have temporary disability and 80% have permanent disabilities. Violence against women. Around 1 in 3, 35% women in the world have experienced physical and or sexual violence, and most of these cases are intimate partner violence. So 38% of the murders of women are committed by their male partner. Refugees and migration health. Today, there are some 1 billion migrants globally, 281 million international migrants, 82.4 million forcibly displaced, 48 million internally displaced, 26 refugees, and 4 million asylum seekers. Fragility and conflict. So 2 billion people now live in situations affected by fragility and conflict, and this conflict affect the access to health services, produce an impact in the health of the population, and produce an impact in the facilities and in the health systems. Not only that, but affect other important aspects like nutrition and uh, safety of agricultural production that can produce epidemics and starvation. Earthquakes. Between 1998 and 2017, earthquake caused almost 750,000 deaths worldwide. More than 125 million people were affected by earthquakes during the same period of time. Here in the map, you can see some of the historically more mortal earthquakes, including Turkey, Armenia, China, Indonesia, but you can see that a lot of countries are affected and quite often affected by earthquakes. Floods. Floods are the most frequent type of natural disaster, and between 1998 and 2017, flood affect more than 2 billion people around the world. Hurricanes. They are large storms that produce winds of 119 kilometers per hour, and the hurricane winds can damage buildings and trees, and again can produce a higher mortality. Here are some examples of um, different hurricanes. I would like to mention some of them. The Mitch is one of the hurricanes with the higher mortality, and I had the opportunity to work in Guatemala during the Mitch and try to and participate in the process of provide services to the population affected and the survivors of the Mitch, and it's unbelievable the damage that a hurricane can produce. Other important examples in terms of mortality was in the U.S. And in the Caribbean, so the Galveston and the Hurricane David, etc. So areas like most of the islands in Caribbean are very often affected by hurricanes. Heat waves. Between 1998 and 2017, more than 160,000 people died due to heat waves. including more than 70,000 who died during 2003 heat wave in Europe. Important to mention that Europe didn't realize the higher mortality at the moment that happened, but 1 or 2 years later. Epidemics is definitely an important killer. Here are some examples of the mortality in HIV, one of them, plague in different countries. COVID-19 appeared as one of the killers, an important killers, especially in the past 2 years. Cholera, yellow fever, MERS, Hong Kong flu. So we have multiple epidemics and mortality due to these epidemics. And important to mention that the effect, for example, of COVID is not only in terms of deaths or morbidity, but in terms of the social and economical cost of COVID. And that is true with yellow fever, with Ebola, cholera, etc. Bioterrorism is a biological attack or and can be used different kind of products, virus, bacteria. So one important example is Anthrax that was used as a weapon in different wars, and it was used as internal bioterrorism in the US in 2001. Anthrax is a product easy to manipulate, easy to find, and is very deadly. It can kill a lot of people. Here is the list of some examples of bioterrorism used especially during wars, and that includes to use the leprosy uh, bodies, to use poison, bullets, some kind of gas like a mustard gas, sarin gas, so are examples, and anthrax again are examples of bioterrorism used during a conflict, even recent conflicts. The Relief Web has a map with alerts and ongoing disasters. So we will use this map in and the assessment to choose one of the different um, ongoing disaster or emergencies and describe what is happening. You can choose, doesn't matter which one, but what is important is to summarize what is in this relief web and complement with others sources like a World Health Organization. Here are some of the reference you can use to complement this information and from the we use to define the or to present this data on number of deaths or the cost of these emergencies and disasters. Thank you very much.